I want to discuss an alternate method for throwing the darts. The conventional wisdom is that you point the dart towards the target during the throw release. What I'm proposing is what I call the stiff wrist throw. In this throw, instead of flexing your wrist and your fingers and leaning forward as you throw, nothing moves except the forearm. Back in the 1990s, a mechanical engineer named Chris Paulicki applied mechanical formulas to the throwing of dice and created a system where he could increase the odds of the dice hitting the numbers that he wanted. He wrote a book called How to Control the Dice. And I think we can do the same kind of thing with the darts. The old method recommended is shown here, where a lot of different variables go into the throw, and the new method where everything stays perfectly still except the forearm, and this reduces the number of variables that you have to control in order to throw the dart. So what are the elements that go into the throwing of a dart? Most of them have to do with the velocity. Things like stance and posture and foot position are going to be the same no matter how you throw the dart, so we'll ignore those. The big things are velocity, which comes from several different places. One is, something I haven't seen discussed very much, is the movement of the fingers and the attempt to keep the dart parallel to the ground and pointed at the target. The fingers have to flex forward as you throw the dart. The second is the wrist action. The wrist flicks. Third is the upper arm and forearm extension as you throw the dart. And finally, there's subtle but distinct surge which comes from leaning into the throw, comes from a pushing against the back foot as you throw the dart. So you've got a number of variables, and what Paulicki discovered quite correctly is that if you can reduce the number of variables to just a few, you can increase your accuracy. So here's a summary of what the variables are: finger extension, wrist flicking, forearm extension, upper arm extension, and forward lean. Now let's see if we can get that down to just a couple, which would be the upper arm movement and the velocity and the timing of release. So like I said, the timing of release is going to be standard, and the only thing you have to control then is... Now here we see me practicing in my backyard. Notice that nothing changes. I'm not leaning forward as I throw. I'm not flicking the wrist. It's just the upper arm, and the time of release determines the target. Now, some critics have pointed out that when you have the point of the dart pointing down as you throw, that you can create a wobble. But I looked at some stop action of the video, and usually what happens is the arrow orientation corrects itself pretty quickly, usually before it hits the zenith of the arc. So it will tend to be flexing down when you release it. As it approaches the zenith, it'll be pointing up a little bit too much, but by the time it's on its downward path to the target, it's oriented in the correct direction. I have not yet experimented with heavier darts or bigger fins or those other variables, but it seems to hit the target squarely, just like the normal throw, and we get a nice close cluster of hits, which leads me to think that we've correctly reduced the number of variables and we have a good system here.